Do you dread the editing phase of writing a novel? Well, I'm here to simplify the process for you. Today, I'm sharing the top 5 questions to ask yourself while editing your novel. So be sure to stick around. Let's get started. Hey guys, Nour here and welcome back to my channel. For those visiting for the first time, hello! I'm the fantasy author of the novel Divinity Falling. Be sure to subscribe for weekly writing advice videos. So let's talk about editing. It can be intimidating if you don't know what you're supposed to edit to improve your story. But that's why I want to make this easy for you. Obviously, grammar and syntax should be at the top of your list while editing. But aside from that, here are some questions to ask yourself while editing to really improve your story. Number 1. Is there anything unclear or illogical in the story? This is where you look for any instance that might confuse readers. For example, let's say you mention a fantasy object, but don't fully explain what it does. Readers won't be able to picture it or know how it's used, and that will pull them out of the story. So you'll want to go in and revise these details, making sure they are clear. You should also look out for plot holes and instances that just don't add up. If a character got stabbed in the chest, they're not going to survive untreated just because they put a band-aid on the wound. We all know this, but then again, a lot of writers get medical details wrong. So make sure you do your research whether you're writing about things that require medical treatment or not. And if you do want your character to survive a chest injury with just a band-aid, make sure there's a logical reason behind it. For example, the band-aid was given to them by a fairy with magical abilities. Don't leave anything unclear. Number 2, are there any characters or scenes that don't move the story forward? This is something I often see writers do in their first drafts. And that's okay, I do it too. We all write those extra side characters and scenes that are detailed, but end up having nothing to do with the rest of the story. But that doesn't mean you should keep them in. So go through your story with a critical mindset and consider every character, detail, and scene. If you were to remove them from the story, will that affect the plot? If the answer is no, then they were never important, and you should delete them from your story. Prologues and characters introduced in the first chapter or 2 typically fall into this category. Number 3, are there any instances of info dumping? Sometimes we get so excited writing the story that we end up sharing too many facts with the reader all at once. That's info dumping. You describe the characters in detail, share everything about their past, and then go on to share all the details about their world. And this all happens in the span of one chapter. And usually, nothing else worth noting happens in that chapter. The main character just takes a nap or cooks with their family while narrating all these unnecessary details. There's no useful action or story-moving events. So, if you find yourself doing this and info dumping, take it all out. You don't want to overwhelm readers. You have an entire novel to explain characters' backstories and share world-building facts. So take it easy. Share one bit of information at a time. I promise, readers will remember all these details better if you do. Number 4. Are there any pacing issues? This is where one chapter drags on or another chapter feels rushed. Usually, I notice writers rushing their story's endings. They just got to the climax and they're really excited to vanquish the antagonist. So they do that in like 5 minutes and wrap up the book. But this is the moment readers have been waiting for. So don't rush through it. Make it worthwhile and exciting. The same thing applies to chapters that drag. This is typically those middle chapters where writers have no idea what to write to keep the story exciting until the climax. So they end up just writing filler scenes with lots of boring dialogue just to fill the space. If you've done this, remove all those unnecessary scenes. Remember, if something isn't moving your story forward, it shouldn't be in your story. And if you remove a scene and the story goes on unaffected, then you never needed it. Instead, write scenes that increase the stakes for your characters. Don't go easy on them. The middle of your story should be just as exciting as the beginning and end. Number 5, are my characters well-rounded and relatable? When you're editing your story, make sure you have believable characters with desires and goals. They should be unique with their own strengths and weaknesses. After all, you want readers to relate to their struggles and desire to succeed. Otherwise, why should readers care about them or your story? So make sure your characters aren't flat and don't just have one trait, like being nice to a fault and having 0 flaws. Instead, make them imperfect, but in a way that readers can relate to. So that's what I have for you today. I'd love to know, what's one thing you always remove from your story during editing? Let me know in the comments. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. I put out weekly writing advice videos that will take your story to the next level. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media to see what I'm up to from day to day and to chat with me. And before we go, I just want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Frayne, Alan J. Early, and Noah Kovanti from my shout-out tier over on Patreon, as well as all my amazing patrons. Thank you all so much for your support. I really appreciate you. And remember, Nour for president!